Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Well, I just put out an upload called 4 Dogman Encounters Worldwide. And I'm sitting in my studio, spinning in my chair, looking at the snowy, sunshiny day in upstate New York, and decide, you know what? Let's put out a Skinwalker encounter video for you guys. So, that's what I did. Before I get into these encounters, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, PayPal, and merch to help this channel continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. If that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give them a listen. You may just like them. And with that, guys, let's get on with these Skinwalker encounters. Shall we? Today's first Skinwalker encounter. Okay, before I start, I've had 7 encounters with Skinwalkers. The first being when I was 9 and the last being 3 months ago. I'm now 16. So I don't know if what I call a Skinwalker is what everybody else thinks a Skinwalker is. I've been calling them that since my second encounter when I was 10, before I even knew Skinwalkers were already a thing. Okay, let's get on with this story. Like I stated earlier, I'm 16. I currently live in Massachusetts, and I've also lived in Michigan and Wisconsin, and have encounters in both of those states. I live near Boston, but was going on a road trip with my friend and his family out to their new place in a more remote part of Massachusetts. And yes, Massachusetts has remote parts. I'll just call my friend Chad. We get to their house, and I was planning on staying for about a week to help them get settled in and just see the surrounding area. At the edge of their property, they have these woods that start off with just a few trees here and there, but after a 5-minute walk, they get pretty thick. On the 3rd day of being there, Chad's mom says she wants to give us a day off so we could do whatever we wanted. At this, we started wandering around the property and just starting hanging around the house. Then we chose to walk to the closest town. This takes about 30 minutes. The town's small and there isn't much to do, but I'm happy being back to a place where I really like to live. Really small and in the middle of nowhere. We talked to the owner of the ice cream shop, who told us a bit of history about the town. Nothing important or very exciting. After that, we start heading back to Chad's. We get back around noon, and I suggest we go for a walk in the woods. Chad, who is not very outdoorsy, says no, but after a couple of minutes me nagging him, he agrees. Even though I go out all the time, I camp and walk trails at night most of the time. I got paranoid because of the Skinwalkers I've seen and other stuff, so I always carry a pocket knife when I go out. We start out on the trail, and it's really thin at first, and then it gets really thick. And at first, Chad spends his time grumbling. There's too many bugs, it's too hot. Keep in mind, this is the last part of October. After a while, he starts enjoying himself and being outside and actually says he likes it and wants to go further into the woods. By now, it's about 4:30 and it's starting to get dark, but we don't really care much. We kept going and dark fell rapidly at this point and we couldn't see much. We had started on our way back and at some point got separated. I noticed this and turned my flashlight app on my phone and spun around to see if Chad was around, but I couldn't see him. Chad, I call out. Can you hear me? If you can, say something. I waited a few minutes later off and heard to my right a stammer. Zach! That's my name. It sounded just like Chad, and I quickly turned in the direction of the noise and slowly walked towards it. I didn't see anything, so I moved my light horizontally to try to spot anything. I call out again, Chad! And got a Zach. Again, it was much stronger and louder this time. I walked forward with more confidence, but stopped dead in my tracks as I heard something big moving very quickly through the brush from right behind me. I whipped around frantically and came face to face with Chad. At first I was stunned. I heard him in the opposite direction. Up to this point of my life, I had only encountered a Skinwalker with another person, once, and we were together when it happened, so this situation was new to me. What are you doing? Why did you walk up behind me? Why didn't you come from the same direction you were calling me at? I practically yelled at him, overcome by anger that he was trying to trick me. What are you talking about? You were the one changing directions, Chad yells back. What? I said quietly. I shined my light on him. I could see he was obviously shaken. I heard you call my name and I started walking to you. You sounded scared or hurt at first, but after a few minutes you started saying my name normally. Then you stopped answering my calls and I heard you from behind me and saw your light, so I started running at you, he exclaimed. I was pale now and started putting the pieces together. I'd encountered skinwalkers that could impersonate people's voices before, and I realized that a skinwalker or something of the sort was in these woods with us. There was a faint noise of movement behind us, and I turned around to see a horrible sight. Not 10 feet away from us, it was the head of a wolf, like the kind you see at a zoo. It was maybe 6.5, 7 feet tall. Its head, shoulders, arms, and chest were covered with a thick gray-white fur. Its legs and most of its stomach was a thinner part of the pelt, same fur. Both Chad and myself saw this creature and ran as fast as we could. For whatever reason, the creature did not give chase, and we made it out of the forest without incident. Chad told his family, who didn't believe him. I didn't tell mine because they never believed me in the past. Chad has not gone back in the woods and has not seen that beast since. The creature we saw didn't look like the other skinwalkers I had encountered before. I have no other name for it other than Skinwalker or Wolfman, but I'm not calling it that. I looked up, the only thing it could have been was a Dogman or a werewolf, but I don't think it was one of those because there was no full moon. If anyone has any ideas, please leave something in the comments below. Today's second Skinwalker encounter. My grandma was a practitioner of native medicine and ceremonies. She was what a Navajo people call a crystal gazer and a hand troubler. People would often come to visit her and ask her for healing or causes of their ailments. At times, people would ask her to help with protection from being attacked by evil entities. My grandma used to teach my aunt and her granddaughter the rituals of the ceremonies, much like an apprenticeship. My cousin was one such person that my grandma had chosen to teach her shamanistic rituals. She would tell me the weirdest and scary stories ever. One story she told me was about a pesky skinwalker that attacked the neighbor of my grandparents. This skinwalker would go over to their homestead and tap on the windows, open the horse corral, knock over water barrels, and just be a pest to the family. It was thought that the skinwalker was sent because of a jealous man who was infatuated with a girl that lived there, and she had refused to date that person. The family had visited my grandparents and asked for help, but my grandma was reluctant to help. A few days later, the skinwalker came back, and this time he harassed a sheep herder. Its attack was relentless, and the sheep herder was frightened and ran over to the family's house in the middle of the night. The father of the house told the sheep herder to calm down and go back to his house. The sheep herder kept saying that it was calling his name, and he wanted it to stop. The father walked the herder back to his house and walked around the house. He didn't see anything unusual. The next morning, the sheep herder didn't come over for breakfast, and the father went to check on him. He didn't find him there, and the front door was open. The father started looking for the sheep herder. It wasn't long until he found him. The sheep herder was found strangled by a barbed wire fence that was used to corral the sheep. The sheep were also gone, more than likely from the barbed wire that was taken off the fence. The family was distraught and visited my grandma for help. My cousin told me about the ceremony they performed to get rid of the skinwalker. She said the next morning they gathered some ingredients, a Navajo ceremonial basket and a crystal arrowhead. She said that early in the morning before the sunrise, they started the ceremony. She held the basket and the arrowhead was buried under the ingredients, and while my grandma was singing, the arrowhead started to rise from the ingredients and levitate above the basket, and it began to fly out of it. They kept singing until the sun came up, and my cousin asked where the arrowhead went. My grandma told her the arrowhead took care of the skinwalker that was terrorizing that family. My cousin told me that the family had been freed from the skinwalker's curse, and they wouldn't have to worry about it again.